Oh my word, gentle people. You know, I've been here talking for 5 minutes and not realize that you all weren't hearing a word I was saying. OMG. Because I hadn't clicked to add myself to this stream. Ain't that something? Happy Thursday to you all, guys. Welcome into the live. I sincerely appreciate you all. Thank you all so much for coming. Today we are going to continue with the reading of the book The Guardian by Nicholas Sparks. Now we started reading this book about a week ago, and I have been enjoying the book so much that I've kind of read ahead ahead of y'all. I got to admit the book was so good. Um, so I read ahead. But when we stopped reading the other day, we stopped at chapter 9. So I am going to resume from chapter 10 for you all so that we can continue to enjoy the story. For those of you who are just coming who are not aware of what this story is about, in the story there is this is a story really about love and loyalty, and in the story there is a young woman by the name of Julie, and Julie lives in one of those off the grid towns in North Carolina, and there she has a very simple life as a hairdresser. Her husband Bob has passed away, and now she's trying to wet her feet back into the dating pool. She has come across this young man by the name of Richard. Richard has sort of swept her off her feet. He has taken her out in a limousine. He has taken her to the opera in Raleigh. He has taken her to a picnic and stuff. But all on a sudden, after spending this wonderful whirlwind weekend with Richard, Julie is having sort of second thoughts. And what set that off is that Richard bought Julie this necklace with a pendant on it, like a locket. And Julie hadn't worn the locket on that particular day. Richard saw her without the locket, and his response to her not wearing the locket seemed as though he wanted to be so controlling. That's what it appears to me. Like he wants to control, like he wants to make sure, oh, she needs to wear the locket every day. And if she's not wearing it because the chain is long, then he'll get her a shorter chain. But it's like every time I see you, you better have this locket on. That is not sitting well with Julie, and that did not sit well with me either. And so Julie is having some second thoughts about Richard, but then news and story and rumors are going on around town, and I don't want to tell you all about it. I want us to read it. AG, how are you doing, AG? I hope you stay safe, my love. God, what's up? How are you doing? Good to see you, sugar. And Jojo, my darling Jojo, what's up? How are you doing, my love? Good to see you. So welcome into the live, guys. We are going to be reading. I can't believe I was talking for a whole 5 minutes thinking that y'all were hearing me and nobody was hearing me. Ain't that something? But let us move on. Chapter 10. Mike was standing in the garage, nodding thoughtfully, doing his best not to wring his customer's neck, and Henry's as well, for foisting this particular customer on him. As soon as Benny Dickens had entered, Henry had suddenly remembered an important call he had forgotten to make and scampered out of sight. You don't mind taking care of him, do you, Mike? Benny was 21 years old, and his family owned the phosphorus mine just outside town. The company had more than 300 people on their payroll, making it Swansboro's largest employer. Benny had dropped out of school in the 10th grade, but he owned a monstrous home on the river, purchased with Daddy's money, of course. Benny didn't work. Benny had never so much as contemplated going to work. And there were at least two little Bennies living in town by two different women. But the Dickens family was far and away the largest account at the garage, the kind of customer that small businesses couldn't afford to lose. And Daddy loved his son. Daddy believed his son walked on water. Daddy, Mike had long ago decided, was an idiot. You know, Joseph, you don't wonder when me there. The way you never text me. Why didn't you text me, sir? I'm here, man. I am here. Must have made it on different time, you know. Made it on different time right now. All right, so let us continue. Louder, Benny said, his cheeks beginning to flush, his voice rising to the whine. I told you that I wanted it loud. He was talking about the engine of his recently purchased Galloway Corvette. He had brought it into the garage so that Mike could make the engine loud. Mike supposed he wanted it that way so it would match the flames he had painted on the hood last week, and the custom stereo system he had installed. Though he didn't attend college, Benny was taking the car to Fort Lauderdale for a spring break next week in the hopes of seducing as many young ladies as he could. Such an impressive young man. It is loud, Mike said. If I make it any louder, it would be illegal. It's not illegal. You'll get pulled over, Mike said. I guarantee it. Benny blinked, as if trying to understand what Mike had just said. You don't know what you're talking about, you stupid grease monkey. It's not illegal. You hear me? It is not illegal. Stupid grease monkey, Mike said, nodding. Got it. Two hands around his neck, thumbs on his Adam's apple, squeeze and shake. Joseph, we are on the same time. I don't know what time you're talking about. Joseph, remember, I'm away, far, far, far away. And where I'm at, we are on different time zones. So that's why when you want to see me, you might not see me. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Benny put his hands on his hips. As usual, he was wearing his Rolex. Doesn't my dad get all his trucks serviced here? Yes. And haven't I been a good customer too? Yes. Wasn't this the place that I brought my Porsche and my Jaguar? Yes. Don't I always pay on time? Yes. Benny waved his arms in exasperation, his voice growing louder. Then why didn't you make the engine louder? I remember coming in here and explaining this very clearly just a couple of days ago. I said I wanted it loud. For cruising the strip, chicks dig loud, and I'm not going down there for the sun. Do you hear me? Chicks, not sun, Mike said. Okay, got it. So make it loud. Loud, I say. All right. And I want it done by tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow. You can understand that, right? Loud. All right. Henry was rubbing his jaw in contemplation as he stood behind Mike. As soon as Benny had screeched off in his Jaguar, he had re entered the garage. Mike was still seething, mumbling to himself as he tinkered with the engine, unaware of Henry's presence. Maybe you should have made it louder, Henry offered. The engine, I mean. Mike looked up. Shut up, Henry. Henry raised his hands as if playing innocent. I'm just trying to be helpful. Yeah, sure. Like the guy flipping the switch on the electric chair. Why did you make me deal with that guy? You know I can't stand him. Oh, and can I? Maybe not, but you are much better at taking abuse than I am. You handle it so well, and you know we can't afford to lose his dad's company as our client. I almost strangled him, but you didn't. And just think, now we can probably charge him extra. It's still not worth it. Oh, Mike, come on. You handled yourself like a true professional. I was impressed. He called me a stupid grease monkey. Coming from him, you should probably take that as a compliment. Henry put his hand on Mike's shoulder. But listen, if it happens again, maybe you should try something different to calm him down a bit. Duct tape? No, I was thinking of something a little more subtle. Such as? I don't know. He paused and began rubbing his jaw again. Did you ever consider offering him a foot massage? Mike's mouth opened. Sometimes he absolutely hated his brother's guts. Jake Blanson arrived a little after 4 o'clock to pick up the truck, and after settling the account in the office, he made his way towards Mike. The keys are in the ignition, Mike said, and just to let you know, I adjusted the brakes so they are not so loose. Just be ready for it. Other than that, it's good to go. Jake Blanson nodded. The consummate workman. Jake was bare bellied and broad shouldered, with a toothpick wedged between his teeth and a NASCAR logo on his baseball cap. Wide swaths of sweat had soaked through his shirt, leaving circular stains beneath his armpits. His jeans and boots were coated in concrete dust. I'll let him know, Jake said, though, to be honest, I don't know why I got stuck with all this anyway. Maintenance was supposed to be handling all the vehicle stuff, but I guess you know how it goes. The bosses over there have everything screwed up. Mike nodded in Henry's direction. I know what you mean. What guy over there can be That guy over there can be a real pain in the sometimes. But I heard he has to take Viagra. So I guess I can't blame him. Must be hard to know that he's only half a man. Jake laughed. He didn't like that. Mike smiled as well, feeling at least partially avenged. So how many guys you got out there these days? I don't even know. A couple hundred maybe. Why? You looking for a job? No, I'm a mechanic. It's just that I met one of the engineers who consults on the bridge. Engineers? Which one? Richard. Richard Franklin. Do you know him? Holding Mike's gaze, Jake removed the toothpick from his mouth. Yeah, I know him, he said. Nice guy. What do you think? He asked. The wariness in his tone made Mike hesitate. I take it the answer is no. Jake seemed to evaluate his answer. So what's it to you? He finally asked. You his friend? No. Like I said, I only met the guy once. Keep it that way. You don't want to know him. Why? After a long moment, Jake shook his head, and though Mike tried to find out more, Jake said nothing. Instead, he turned the conversation back to the truck and left the shop a few minutes later, leaving Mike wondering what it was that Jake hadn't told him and why that suddenly seemed more important than the things he had said. His thoughts, though, were interrupted when Singer came trotting in. Fly Girl Georgia is here. How are you doing, my sweet sister? Good to see you. Good to see you, my dear. How is everything going with you? How is the therapy coming on? Talk to me, sis. How is the therapy coming on? It's good to see you on the day before my birthday. It's the day before I turn another number. I can't even tell you. No. I'm not even telling you, y'all. Just know I'm in my 50s. That's all. That's all y'all gotta know. But good to see y'all, guys. Good to see you. Let us continue reading this book. We are reading for 90 minutes. Okay? Hey, big guy, Mike called out. When Singer got close, he jumped up, balanced on two legs, his front paws pressing against Mike's chest as if they were dancing at the prom. Singer squeaked low in his throat, sounding excited. What are you doing here? Mike asked. Singer dropped back on all fours again, then turned and started towards Mike's locker. I don't have any food, Mike said, following him, but I know Henry has some in his office. Let's go clean him out. Singer led the way. After opening the bottom drawer of Henry's desk, Mike pulled out Henry's favorites, the miniature powdered sugar donuts and chocolate chip cookies, and dropped into Henry's chair. He tossed them one by one, and Singer caught them in the air, gobbling them down like a frog catching flies. Though it probably wasn't good for him, his tail wagged in approval the whole time. Even better, Henry was going to be really annoyed when he realized his stash was gone. Sort of like getting two for the price of one. With her last customer of the day on her way out, Julie glanced around the salon. Have you seen Singer? She asked Mabel. I let him out a while ago, Mabel said. He was standing at the door. How long ago was that? I guess about half an hour. Julie glanced at her watch. Singer was never gone this long. And he hasn't come back. I think I saw him heading towards Mike's. Well, Flagger says, I'm doing good, thank you, Azia, but HH. Wonderful, my love. It's coming on. Bit by bit, my love. We continue to pray for you. Singer was curled up on an old blanket, snoring off the sugar treats as Mike adjusted the transmission of a Pontiac Sunbird. Hey, Mike, Julie called out. You still here? Mike looked up at the sound of her voice and moved out into the bay. Back here, he called out. Singer raised his head, his eyes groggy. Have you seen Singer? Yeah, he's right here. He nodded off to the side and grabbed a rag. As he wiped his hands, Singer rose and started towards Julie. There you are, she said. When Singer reached her, she scratched his back as he circled her body. I was beginning to get worried about you. Mike smiled, thankful that Singer hadn't gone back. He looked up. She looked up. What's going on? Nothing much. How are you? I'm okay. Just okay. It's one of those days, she said. You know how it is. Yeah, I suppose I do, he said, nodding. Especially today. Benny came in for starters, and then Henry almost died. Wait, what? Henry almost died? Died, killed, whatever you want to call it. I stopped myself at the last minute. Couldn't stand the thought of what our parents might say to me once I was behind bars. But let me tell you this, it was close. Pretty close, I tell you. Was he giving you a hard time today? When doesn't he ever give me a hard time? Poor thing. Remind me to cry you a river tonight. I know I could count on you, he said. Julie laughed. Sometimes he was so darn cute, especially with that dimple. So what did he do? Cut a hole in the back of your overalls again? No, that one got old after a while. And sometimes the last time, and besides, the last time he did it, I covered a wrench with crazy glue and then asked him to hold it while I checked something out. He couldn't get the wrench off until the next morning. He had to sleep with that thing. Oh my God, these two brothers are crazy with each other. I remember that, Julie giggled. He couldn't take anything you offered him. He wouldn't take anything you offered him for about a week after that. Yeah, that was good for him, Mike said, waxing nostalgic. It was, in his opinion, one of his better moments. I should do things like that more often, but I just don't think that way. Oh, that Kenzie. Kenzie, I'm on vacation, boo. I am on my birthday vacay. What's up with you? How are you doing? God, nothing can pass you. That Joseph, they're easy. You are so welcome, Georgia. Yes, lots of love and lots of prayers for you, my love. All right, we are going to continue. Let us continue right here. No matter what you do, he'll always give you a hard time. But just remember, he does those things because he's jealous. You think so? I know so. He's losing his hair and he's got Dunlop's disease. Dunlop's? Yeah, his belly Dunlopped right over his belt. Mike laughed. Yeah, must be tough getting old like that. So, you didn't answer my question. What was it today? Mike couldn't explain Henry's comment. Instead, he motioned towards the soda machine and reached in his pocket for some change. Oh, he said casually, the same old stuff. Her hands went to her hips. Must have been good if you won't tell me. I'll never tell, he said. Then he stood straighter and his voice took on a serious note. But sometimes I can't help but think that you live vicariously through his antics, and I must say that it hurts me. He handed Julia Diet Coke, then got himself a Dr. Pepper. No need to ask what she wanted. He always knew. Hurts you? She said, taking the can like a knife. Do I have to cry 2 rivers tonight? 2 would be nice, but make it 3, and I'll definitely forgive you. When he grinned, Julie realized how much she had missed talking to him lately. So aside from Henry, anything else excited happened today? Mike paused. Well, a guy named Jake Bladson came in and said some very cryptic things about Richard. You want to hear about that? No, no, now was not the time. He shook his head. Not really. How about you? Well, nothing. Just nothing? She glanced towards Singer. Except for this guy running away. For a little while there, I actually thought someone had taken him or something had happened to him. Singer, no car would stand a chance if it ever hit him. It would be crushed like a bug. It would it still had me worried. That's because you are a woman, Julie. Men like me, we don't worry. We are trained not to panic. Julie smiled. That's good to know. When the hurricane hits, you'll be the first one I call to board up the house. You do that anyway, Julie. Don't you remember? You even bought me my own special hammer. Well, you can't expect me to do it. I might panic or something. Mike chuckled, and for a moment, silence settled in. Now what? He thought, except for the obvious. So you are so how are things going with Richard? He asked, trying to sound casual. Julie hesitated. Yes, she wondered, how are they going? Okay, she answered. The weekend was all right, but she trailed off, thinking, how much do I really want to say to Mike? But it's not important. He studied her. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. She flashed a quick, forced smile. Like I said, it's nothing. Mike sensed her discomfort, but he let it go. She didn't want to talk about Richard. He didn't want to talk about him either. He had no problems with that. Well, listen, if you find that you need to talk about anything, I'm here, okay? I'm serious, he said. I'm always around. I know you are. She put a friendly hand on his shoulder, trying to diffuse the tension. Part of me thinks you should get out more, see the world more, take exotic trips. What? And ruin my stake of consecutive nights watching Baywatch reruns? Exactly, she said. Anything's better than television. But if travel's not your thing, you might consider something else, like taking up a musical instrument or something. Mike pressed his lips together. Now that, my dear, was a low blow. Her eyes gleamed. As good as Henry's? He thought about it. No, Henry's was better. Rats. What can I say? You are just a rookie. She smiled, then leaned back a little, as if taking a moment to evaluate him. You're pretty easy to get along with, you know. Because I'm easy to tease? No, because you're such a good sport about it. Mike took a moment to scrape a bit of grease from his fingernails. That's funny, he said. What? What is? Those words you use. Andrea said exactly the same thing to me just the other day. Andrea? Julie repeated, wondering if she had heard him right. Yeah, this weekend, when we went out on our date. Which reminds me, I'm supposed to pick her up in a few minutes. He glanced towards his watch, then his locket. But, but wait, Andrea? Julie couldn't mask her bewilderment. Yeah, she's great. We had a good time. But listen, I've got to run. Julie reached for his arm. But, she said, you and Andrea? Mike stared at her solemnly for a couple of beats, then winked. Had you going, didn't I? Julie crossed her arms. No, she snapped. Come on, just a little. No, admit it. Okay, fine. I admit it. Mike gave her a look of satisfaction. Good. Now we're even. He's foolish. He is silly as a goose. He wanted to get Julie going. He told Julie he went out with Andrea. And you all know who Andrea is in this story. Watch out, so God said what Joseph I shoot first and ask questions late. you, you, oh my God. When I see your face. Oh my God. Awaka did see now. Awaka did see. Let me see Awaka did see. Awaka you say card see. Awaka did see now. To me, I get nosy too, you know. AG the boner. Why you want to see your face? You have to consult our agent. Exactly. If you want to see my face, you have to consult with CAD first. I know you are a very great private investigator. You can't go wrong. AG the boner. Joseph, oh, you have to call me out so. Y'all are crazy. Very crazy. Why, AG, why you want to see my face? You don't see my face every day. I bet you see me every day, don't you? Every single day. You want, you want a peek? You want a peek? Hold on there, Joseph. Hold on the AG. Let me give you your heart's desire. Let me give your heart desire one little time. Not this so. Hold on. Let me see if I can give AG's heart's desire for just a little bit. AG, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied now? Here I come with love and not hatred. What else you want from me? Are you satisfied now? All right, I'm gone again. See you later. John. Exactly, Joe. Me have to make them long for see me sometime. Yes, man. Let's move on, guys. We are on to chapter 11 of the book The Guardian. I love this book. Julie let the door swing closed behind her, still relishing her conversation with Mike. Mabel looked up from the desk. Were you supposed to meet Richard tonight? She asked. No. Why? He came by and asked for you. Didn't you see him? I was over at the garage with Mike. You didn't see Richard on your way back? No. That's strange, she said. You should have seen him on the street. I mean, he just left a couple of minutes ago, and I thought he went looking for you. I guess not. Julie glanced at the door. Did he say what he wanted? Well, not really, just that he was looking for you. You still might be able to catch him if you hurry. Mabel turned on the answering machine and finished straightening up the desk, watching Julie debate whether or not to go. When the moment passed, thus making the decision for her, she went on as if she hadn't suggested it. I don't know about you, she said, but I'm bushed. Everyone I worked on complained today. If it wasn't about their hair, it was their kids or their husbands or the new preacher or barking dogs or how crazy the drivers are from up north. Sometimes you just want to tell them to grow up. You know what I mean, right? Julie was still thinking of Richard. Must be a full moon, she muttered. Everyone was a little off today. The page stuck together. Even Mike? No, not Mike. Julie waved a hand in relief. Mike's always the same. Mabel pulled open the bottom drawer of her desk and removed the flask. Well, it's about time to shake off the cobwebs, she announced. Join me? Mabel enjoyed shaking off the cobwebs regularly and as a result had fewer cobwebs than anyone Julie knew. Yeah, I'll join you. I'll lock the door. Mabel removed 2 plastic bottles from the bottom drawer and made herself comfortable on the couch. By the time Julie joined her, Mabel had kicked off her shoes, propped her feet on the table, and already taken a drink. With her eyes closed and her head leaned back, it seemed almost as if she believed she was sitting in a chaise lounge on a distant beach, basking beneath a tropical sun. So what's Mike up to these days? She asked, her eyes still closed. He hasn't come around here much lately. Nothing too exciting, working, feuding with Henry, the usual. Other than that, not much. She paused and her face brightened. Oh, did you hear that he'll be playing at the Clippers in a few weeks? Oh, hooray! The lack of enthusiasm was palpable. Julie laughed. Be nice. And actually, it's a pretty good band this time. It won't help. He's not that bad. Mabel smiled before sitting up. Oh, honey, I know he's your friend, but he's like kin to me. I watched him running around in diapers, and trust me when I say that he is definitely that bad. I know it drives him crazy too, since that's all he ever really wanted to do. But like the good book says, suffer not the terrible singers, for they shall ruin the ears. God, I wish part of the good book said that. Mabel is crazy. The good book says, suffer not the terrible singers, for they shall ruin the ears. And the good book doesn't say that. Well, it should, and it probably would if Mike had been around back then when it was written. Oh my God. Mabel is out of control, I tell you. Oh well, he loves it. If performing makes him happy, then I'm happy for him. Mabel smiled. You are truly a kind and special gal, Julie. I don't care what anyone else says about you. I like you. She held up her glass in toast. Likewise, Julie said, clinking cups. So what's up with you and Richard? Mabel asked. After he came by today, you hardly mentioned him at all. It's going okay, I guess. Mabel's chin rose. You guess? As in, I guess I don't see the iceberg, Captain? It's going okay, she repeated without much enthusiasm. Mabel searched Julie's face for a moment. So why didn't you try to catch him for a few minutes? Why didn't you try to catch him a few minutes ago when I suggested it? No reason. Julie shrugged. It's just that I already saw him today. Oh, Mabel said, dragging the words out. I guess that makes sense. Julie took a drink, feeling the burn at the back of her throat. Though she couldn't take though she couldn't talk to Mike about Richard, Mabel was different. Mabel, she thought, would help her sort through her feelings about him. Do you remember the locket he gave me? She asked. How could I forget it, Julie? Well, Julie said, the problem was that I didn't wear it today. So, that's what I thought. But I think Richard was offended. If that offended him, remind me never to serve him my meatloaf. When Julie didn't respond, she waved her cup before going on. So he got offended? So what? Men have their quirks, and maybe that's one of his. And there are worse things, believe me. But I think you have to judge what happened today against everything else. I agree. You have been on what? 3 dates now? Four, really, if you count last weekend as two. And you said he's been nice, right? Yeah, so far. Then maybe he was just having a bad day. You told me you told me he works odd hours, right? Maybe he had to go in on a Sunday and work late. Who knows? You see, that is the thing what we always doing, always finding excuse for these men's bad behavior. And it's about time we stop it. Julie drummed her fingers against the cup. Maybe. Mabel swirled the bourbon. Don't worry about it too much, she said evenly. As long as he didn't go overboard, it's no big deal. So just let it go? Not exactly. You shouldn't completely ignore it either. Julie looked up and Mabel met her eyes. Take it from a lady who has had too many dates and met too many men over the years, Mabel said. Everyone, you included, is on her best behavior in the beginning of the relationship. Sometimes little quirks turn out to be big ones. And the big advantage that women have, sometimes the only advantage, is their intuition. And you hear that? The biggest advantage a woman have, or sometimes the only advantage she have in the relationship, is her intuition. Because little quirks usually turn into big things. So don't ignore the little things. But I thought you just said not to worry. I did, but never ignore your intuition either. So you do think it's a problem? Honey, I don't know what to think, just like you don't. There's no book of magic answers out there. I'm just telling you not to simply shrug it off if it bothered you so much. But don't let it ruin a good thing either. That's what dating is for, to find out about the person, to find out if the two of you click. I'm just throwing a little good old common sense into the mixture. That's all. Julie was quiet for a moment. I guess you are right, she said. The phone started ringing, and Mabel turned towards the sound. A moment later, the answering machine picked up. After listening, after listening to see who it was, she faced Julie again. So, 4 dates, huh? Julie nodded. Will there be a fifth? He hasn't asked, but I think he probably will. That's a strange way of answering the question. What do you mean? You didn't say what you were going to say if he asked. Julie glanced away. No, she said. I suppose I didn't. Richard was waiting for her when she got home. His car was parked on the street in front of her house. and he was leaning against it, his arms crossed and one leg over the other, watching as she turned into the driveway. After pulling to a stop, Julie looked towards Singer and unhooked her seatbelt. Just stay in the Jeep until I say so, okay? Singer pricked his ears up. And behave, she added as she stepped out. By then, Richard was standing in the driveway. Hello, Julie, he said. Hi, Richard, she said neutrally. What are you doing here? He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. I had a few minutes and thought I'd drop by. I tried to catch you at the salon, but I guess you were taken off. I had to go get Singer. He was over at the garage. Richard nodded. That's what Mabel said. I couldn't wait though. I had some blueprints. I had some blueprints I had to drop off before the office closed. And actually, I have to get back as soon as I'm done here. But I just wanted to say I'm sorry about this morning. I got to thinking about how I acted, and I think I went a little overboard. He smiled, looking contrite, a kid with his hand caught in the cookie jar. Well, she began, now that you mentioned it. Richard held up his hands to stop her. I know, I know. No excuses. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Julie brushed away a strand of hair that had fallen on her face. Were you really that upset that I didn't wear the locket? No, he said. Trust me, it wasn't about that. Then what was it? Richard glanced away. His voice was so soft she could barely hear it. It's just that I had such a good time on the weekend, and when I saw that you didn't have it on, I sort of thought that you didn't feel the same way. I guess I felt like I'd let you know somehow. I mean, you don't know how much I've enjoyed the time we've spent together. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? Julie thought for a moment before nodding. Yes, she said. I know you'd understand, he said. He glanced around as if suddenly nervous in her presence. Well, listen, like I said, I gotta head back into work. Okay, Julie said simply. She forced a smile. A moment later, this time without trying to kiss her, he was gone. No goodbye kiss there. No goodbye kiss. All right. We'll see what happens after that. In the darkness, under a silver In the darkness, under a silver moon, Richard approached the front door of the rented Victorian he temporarily called home. It was on the outskirts of town, surrounded by farmland, set 100 yards back from the main road. The house was pale in the light, half the height of the shadowed pines that surrounded it. Though somewhat neglected, it still retained an old fashioned charm, with trim and wainscoting that brought to mind a lace trimmed invitation to a party at the home of the governor. The property needed attention. What had once been a well kept garden had become overgrown with weeds and could so. But the overgrowth didn't bother him. There was beauty in the randomness of nature, he thought, in the curved and crooked lines of shadows at nights, in the varying colors and shapes of branches and leaves in the daytime. Inside, however, he preferred order. Randomness ended at the door, and as he pushed his way inside, he flipped on the lights. The rented furniture, not much, but enough to make the home presentable, was not to his taste, but in a small town like Swansboro, choices were limited. In a world of cheap products and polyester jacketed salesmen, he had chosen the least offensive items he had been able to find. Tan corduroy couches and oak laminated end tables, plastic lamps with fake brass. Tonight, however, he didn't notice the decor. Tonight, there was only Julie, and the locket, and the way she had looked at him only moments before. Again, he pushed too hard, and again, she had called him on it. She was becoming a challenge, but he liked that. He respected that, for what he despised above all was weakness. Why on earth was she living in a small town like this? Julie, he thought, belonged in the city, place of crowded sidewalks and flashing signs, quick insults and snappy comebacks. She was too sharp, too stylish for a place like this. There was no energy here for her to draw on, nothing to sustain her in the long run. Strength, if unused, wasted away, and if Julie stayed, he knew she would grow weak, just as his mother had grown weak, and in time there would be nothing to respect. Just like his mother, the victim, always the victim. He closed his eyes, retreating to the past. It was 1974, and the image was always the same. With her left eye swollen shut and her cheek purple, his mother was loading a suitcase into the trunk. Trying to move quickly, the suitcase had held closed for both of them. In her purse, she had $37 in assorted change. It had taken almost a year to save that much. Vernon handled the finances and gave her just enough to do the shopping. She wasn't allowed to touch the checkbook and didn't even know what bank he used to cash his paychecks. The little money that she had had the little money that she had been collecting from the sofa cushion, coins that had fallen from his pocket as he dozed in front of the television. She had hidden the coins in a box of laundry detergent on the top shelf in the pantry. And every time he went that way, her heart hammered in her chest. Can you imagine? Can you imagine living like that? You with a man. You with a man. Him give you just enough money to buy the shop, to do the shopping. Him check the receipt when you come back. Him check everything. Him not give you no additional money where you can buy yourself a soda. And you take a year to save up $37. And you have to wait until 10 cents and 5 cents drop out of your pocket for you to save it up to be able to escape that kind of abuse. Oh Lord. She told herself she was leaving for good this time. This time, he wouldn't talk her into coming back. She told herself she wouldn't believe him, no matter how sweet he was to her, no matter how sincere his promises were. She told herself that if she stayed again, he would kill her. Maybe not this month or the next, but he would her. And then he would their son. She told herself all these things and repeated them almost like a mantra, as if the words would give her the strength to go. Richard thought of his mother on that day, how she had kept him home from school, how she had told him to run inside and grab the loaf of bread and peanut butter because they were going on a picnic, how she had told him that he should bring a jacket too, in case the temperatures dropped. He was 6 years old and did as his mother told him, even though he knew she was lying. He had heard his mother screaming and crying the night before as he lay in bed, heard the sharp crack as his father's hand connected with her cheek, heard his mother crash into the thin wall that separated his room from theirs, heard her moaning and pleading for him to stop, that she was sorry, that she had been planning to do the laundry but had to take their son to the doctor instead. He had listened as Vernon called his mother names and made the same accusations he always did when he was drinking. "He doesn't look like me," his father had screamed. "He's not mine." Lying in his bed, listening to the screams, he had prayed that it was true. He didn't want the monster to be his father. He hated him, hated the greasy sheen of his hair when he got home from the chemical factory, the boozy way he smelled all night, hated the fact that while other kids in the neighborhood got bikes and roller skates for Christmas, he had been given a baseball bat with no glove or ball. He hated the way he beat his mother when the house wasn't clean enough or if he couldn't find something his mother had put away. He hated the way they always kept the curtains drawn and how no one had even been allowed to visit. Hurry, his mother said, motioning with her arm. We want to find a good table at the park. He ran into the house. His father would be coming home for lunch in an hour, as he did every day. Though he walked to work, he took the car keys with him. A ringed jungle connected. Oh my God. A ringed jumble connected to his belt with a chain. His mother had removed one of the keys this morning as his father smoked and read the paper and ate the bacon and eggs that his wife had cooked. They should have left right away, right? After his father had disappeared over the hill on his way to the plant. Even at 6, he knew that, but instead, his mother had sat at the table for hours, smoking one cigarette after the other, her hands shaking. She had neither spoken nor moved from the seat until just a few minutes earlier. But now they were running out of time. She was frantic at the thought that they weren't going to make it. Again, again, and again. He came bursting through the door, carrying the bread and peanut butter and his jacket, and ran towards the car. Even as he ran, he could see that the white of his mother's left eye was red with blood. He closed the door to the Pontiac with a slam, and she tried to put the key into the ignition but missed. Her hands were shaking so badly. She took a deep breath and tried again. This time the engine turned over, and she tried to smile. Her lips were swollen and it came out crooked. With her face and bloody eyes, there was something terrifying in that smile. She put the car into reverse and backed out of the garage. In the road, they idled for a moment and she glanced at the dashboard. She gasped. The gas gauge showed that the tank was nearly empty. So they stayed again, as always. Oh my God, I thought she was gonna get away. But there is no gas in the car. That night, he heard his mother and father in the bedroom, but they weren't sounds of anger. Instead, he heard them laughing and kissing. Later, he heard his mother breathing hard and calling out his father's name. When he got out of bed the next morning, his father and mother were holding each other in the kitchen. His father winked, and he watched him lower his hands until they rested on his mother's skirt. He saw his mother blush. Richard opened his eyes. No, he thought, Julie couldn't stay here. Not if she wanted to lead the life she was meant to, the life she deserved. He would take her away from all of this. It was stupid of him to have said anything to her about the locket. Stupid. He wouldn't let it happen again. Lost in thought, he barely heard the ringing of the phone, but he rose in time to answer before the machine picked up. Pausing for a moment, he recognized the Daytona area code on the caller ID and took a deep breath before he answered. In the darkness of her bedroom, with an allergy headache raging, Julie threw her square pillow at Singer. Would you please shut up? She moaned. Singer ignored the pillow. Instead, he stood near the bedroom door, panting and growling, obviously wanting Julie to get up and let him outside as he could, as only dogs can, investigate things. He had been pacing through the house for the last hour, from the bedroom to the living room and back again, and more than once he had pressed his wet nose against her, making her jump. She pulled the pillow over her head, but it wasn't enough to block out the sound, and the compression only made her head feel worse. There's nothing out there, she muttered. It's the middle of the night, and my head hurts. I'm not getting out of bed. Singer continued growling. Not a sinister growl, not a snarl, not the sound he made when men came to check the electric meter. Or, God forbid, try to deliver the mail. Just a pain in the neck rumbling too loud to ignore. She threw her last pillow at him. Singer retaliated by crossing the room silently and pushing his nose into her ears. She sat up, wiping at her ear with her finger. That's it. That does it. Singer wagged his tail, looking satisfied. Now we're getting somewhere, aren't we? Come on. He trotted out of the room, leading the way. Fine, fine. You want me to prove there's nothing out there, you crazy dog. After rubbing her temples with a groan, Julie got out of bed and staggered towards the living room. Singer was already at the front windows. He had pushed aside the curtains with his nose and was looking from side to side. Julie peeked out as well, but saw nothing. See? Nothing, just like I told you. Singer wasn't placated. He moved to the door and stood before it. If you go out, don't expect me to wait up for you. Once you are out, you are out. I'm going back to bed. My head really hurts. And not that you care, but my head really hurts. Singer didn't seem to care. Fine, she said, have it your way. She opened the door. Though she expected Singer to bolt towards the woods, he didn't. Instead, he moved onto the porch and barked twice before lowering his nose to sniff. As he did so, Julie crossed her arms and looked around. Nothing. No sign that anyone had been there at all. With the exception of frogs and crickets, it was quiet. The leaves were still. The street was empty. Satisfied, Singer turned and headed back inside. That's it? You got me out of bed for that? Singer looked up at her. The coast is clear, he seemed to say. No reason to be worried. You can go ahead and go back to sleep now. Julie scowled at him before heading back to the bedroom. Singer didn't follow. Instead, as she squinted over her shoulder on her way back to bed, she saw him sitting by the window again, the curtains pushed aside. Whatever, she mumbled. In the bathroom, her head still pounding, she took some Tylenol PM to help her sleep. When he started snarling and barking again an hour later, this time in earnest, Julie, who had closed the bedroom door and turned on the bathroom fan, didn't hear a word. The next morning, standing in the driveway beneath a balled up sun and sky so blue that it looked artificial, Julie wore sunglasses. Remnants of her headache still lingered, though it wasn't nearly as blinding as it had been the night before. Singer stood beside her as she read the note tucked beneath the windshield wiper of her Jeep. Julie, I was called out of town for an emergency, so I won't be able to see you for a couple of days. I'll call you as soon as I can. I won't stop thinking about you. Richard. Julie glanced at Singer. So that's what all the noise was about, she asked, holding the note in her hands. Richard. Singer looked smug as only he could. See, I told you someone was there. The Tylenol had left her feeling groggy and lethargic, with an acidic taste in her mouth, and she wasn't in the mood for his superior attitude. Don't give me that. You kept me up for hours, and it's not like you don't know him, so get over it. Singer snorted and jumped into the Jeep. He didn't even come to the door. Julie closed the back and slid into the front seat. In the rearview mirror, she saw Singer circle once, then sit with his back to her. Yeah, well, I'm mad at you too. On the way to work, as she glanced in the mirror again, Singer still hadn't turned around, nor did he lean his head over to the side, letting the wind flap his tongue and ears as he usually did. As soon as she parked the car, Singer hopped out. Even though she called to him, he continued on his way, crossing the street and heading towards Mike's garage. Dogs. Sometimes she thought they were as childish as men. Mabel was on the phone, canceling Andrea's appointments. Andrea wouldn't be coming in since she was taking another quote unquote personal day. At least she called this time, Mabel thought. No doubt Andrea would come in with some wild story. On her last personal day, she claimed to have seen Bruce Springsteen walking through the Food Lion parking lot and had followed him around all day before realizing it wasn't him. The question of why Bruce Springsteen would have been at the Swansboro Food Lion had never seemed to enter her mind. When she heard the door jingle behind her, Mabel turned and saw Julie. As she reached for the box of Milkbone biscuits she kept on hand for Singer, she noticed that Julie had come in alone. Where's Singer? Mabel asked. Julie set her purse on a shelf beside her station. I guess he went to visit Mike. Again? We had a fight. She said it exactly the way she used to after having an argument with Jim, and Mabel smiled. Only Julie didn't seem to understand how ridiculous it sounded to other people. A fight, huh? Mabel said. Yeah. So I guess he's off pouting now. Like he's punishing me for having the nerve to yell at him. But he deserved it. Ha ha, Mabel said. So what happened? Julie told Mabel about the fight last night between her and Singer. He left a note to apologize, Mabel asked. No, he did that yesterday when I got home. The note was just to let me know he'd be out of town for a couple of days. Though Mabel wanted to ask how the apology had gone, it was obvious that Julie wasn't in the mood to talk about it. Mabel put the Milkbone box back in the cabinet and glanced towards Singer's blanket in the corner. It looked sort of empty here without him, she said, kind of like someone removed the couch or something. Oh, he'll be back in a little while. You know how he is. To their surprise, however, 8 hours later, Singer still hadn't returned. You know them, so that is a sign. The dog is spending more time with Mike, and that should be a sign to Julie that the dog really likes Mike. Yeah, he really likes Mike, and he's wishing that Julie would spend more time with Mike as well. I tried to bring him back a couple of times, Mike said, looking as perplexed as Julie felt. But he wouldn't follow me out, no matter how much I called. I even tried bribing him with some beef jerky, but he wouldn't leave the garage. I considered dragging him, but to be honest, I didn't think he'd let me. Julie looked at Singer. He was sitting beside Mike, watching Julie, his head tilted to the side. You still mad at me, Singer? She asked. Is that what this is about? Why would he be mad at you? Well, we had a fight. Oh, he said. You just going to sit there, or are you going to come over? She asked. Singer licked his lips but didn't move. Singer, come, she commanded. Singer stayed where he was. Heel. Though she had never given him that particular command, she didn't know what else to say. And just when it seemed that she was beginning to get upset, Mike flipped his hand. Go on, Singer, before you get in bigger trouble. At Mike's command, Singer stood up and reluctantly, it seemed, went to Julie's side. She put her hands on her hips. So you are listening to Mike now? Don't blame me, Mike said, trying to sound innocent. I didn't do anything. I'm not blaming you. I just don't know what's gotten into him lately. Singer sat beside her and looked up. So what did you do here all day? Snooze. stole my turkey sandwich when I got up to go get a drink, went around back to do his business. It's sort of like he just moved in for the day. Did it seem strange to you? Well, no, not at all. Aside from being here, he seemed fine. He wasn't angry at all. Mike scratched his head, knowing that she viewed it as a serious question. Well, to be honest, he didn't mention anything. Not to me, anyway. Want me to go ask Henry? Maybe they talked while I was out or something. Mike, Mike is making fun of Julie, I guess. Julie asking him these ridiculous questions like the dog is a person. Child, please. So he's making fun of her. Julie says, "Are you making fun of me?" No, no, never. You know I'd never do something like that. Good. After almost losing my dog to someone else, I'm not exactly in the mood for joking right now. You didn't almost lose him. He was with me. Yeah, yeah, and now he likes you better. Maybe he just misses me. I'm quite addictive, you know. For the first time since she had arrived, Julie smiled. You are, huh? What can I say? It's gotta be a curse. Julie laughed. It must be tough being you. Mike shook his head, thinking how beautiful Julie looked. You have no idea. OMG, guys. OMG. I think Julie and Mike should be together. That's what I think. An hour later, Julie was standing over the sink in her kitchen. Gamely, gamely holding on to the dish towels she had hastily wrapped around the broken faucet, doing her best to stem the flow of water that had exploded towards the ceiling like a domestic geyser. She grabbed another towel, adding it to the others, then tightened her grip, which reduced the spray somewhat. Unfortunately, it also routed some of the water her way. Could you get me the phone? She shouted, holding her chin high to keep the water from hitting her face. Singer trapped to the living room. A moment later, with her free hand, Julie took the portable phone from his mouth. She hit the first number on her speed dial. Mike was on the couch, munching on Doritos, his fingers frosted with orange powder, a can of beer wedged between his legs, along with the Big Mac he had picked up and finished on the way home. That was his dinner. On the couch beside him was his guitar. And as always, once he had finished playing, he closed his eyes and leaned back, imagining Katie Couric describing the scene to a national television audience. It's the most anticipated concert ever of the year, Katie gushes. With a single album, Michael Harris has set the music world on fire. His first album alone has already sold more than the Beatles and Elvis Presley did in their entire careers combined. And the televised concert is expected to have the largest viewing audience in history. It's being broadcast simultaneously around the globe to an estimated 3 billion people, and the live crowd is estimated to be approaching 2 million. This is history in the making, folks. Smiling, Mike slipped another Dorito into his mouth. Oh, yeah, he thought. Oh, yeah. You can hear the crowd behind me chanting his name. It's amazing how many people he has affected. People have been coming up to me all day telling me that Mike Harris has changed their lives with his music, and here he comes now. Katie's voice is drowned out as the crowd surges forward and erupts in deafening applause. Mike walks on stage holding his guitar. He scans the crowd. The audience goes insane. The sound is ear shattering. He is showered with flowers, as he moved towards the microphone. Women and children are overcome at the sight of him. Men, fighting their jealousy, wish they could be him. Katie nearly passed out. Mike taps the microphone, signaling he is almost ready to begin, and suddenly the audience is quiet. They are waiting for him, but he doesn't start playing right away. Seconds pass, then more seconds, and by now the audience is shaking with fevered expectation, but still he lets the anticipation build. And it does until it's almost unbearable. The audience feels it. Katie feels it. Billions of people watching their television feel it. Mike did, oops. Mike did too. On the couch, he let the adoration wash over him, his hand on the bag of Doritos. Oh, yeah? When the phone on the table beside him suddenly blared like an alarm, Mike was ripped from the fantasy and he jumped. His hand jerked upwards, sending a volcanic eruption of Doritos in all directions and spilling the bear into his lap. Acting on instinct, he tried to brush off the bear, but it didn't do much except leave orange streaks on his crotch. Crap, he said, setting aside the empty can and bag. He reached for the phone with one hand while trying to brush at the bear again. More streaks. Come on, he said. Stop that. The phone rang again before he picked it up. Hello? Hey, Mike, Julie said, sounding stressed. You busy? The bear kept soaking through the fabric, and he shifted slightly in the hopes of getting more comfortable. This did no good. Instead, the bear worked its way around to the seat of his pants. Now there you go, he thought. That was a squishy feeling. The squishiest feeling. What? I'm gonna jump over that part. Part of the sentence is missing. I might have to add something to it. Now there, he thought, was a squishy feeling he could do without, or something like that, or the squishiest feeling he has ever had. I don't know, that part is missing. But we can add whatever we want to it. Right, guys? Not really. You sound distracted. Sorry about that. Just had a little accident here involving my dinner. Excuse me? Mike reached for the bag and started picking the Doritos off his guitar. It's nothing serious, he said. I'll be okay. So what's up? I need you. You do? As his ego inflated, he momentarily forgot about the mess he was sitting in. My faucet exploded. Oh, he said, his ego deflated just as quickly. How'd that happen, Julie? How should I know? Did you jerk it or something? No, I just tried to use it. Was it loose before? I really don't know. But can you come over or not? He made an instant decision. I'd have to change my pants first. Excuse me? Never mind. I'll be there in a few minutes. I have to swing by the hardware store to get you a new faucet. You won't be long, will you? I'm stuck holding a rag here, and I've got to go to the bathroom. If I cross my legs any harder, I'm going to snap my knees. I'm on the way, Julie. I'm on the way. I'll be there in about 30 minutes. In his haste to get dressed and out the door, coupled with the prospect of seeing Julie, he fell only once as he pulled on his pants. It seemed pretty reasonable to him under the circumstances. Hey! Lord have his mercy. God, Why me not like the sound of that? If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Oh, Sister Arlise, what's up? How are you doing, my darling? Good to see you. Welcome into the live. Welcome into the reading live. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you so much for coming, my love. Awekade. Sami plan pisa kando ngagoli. Ani beer till he kill poor Sammy. Sammy dead, Sammy dead, Sammy dead, oh. You're feeling a lot better. Wonderful, my love. Wonderful. I'm glad you're feeling better. All right. We are going to move on to chapter 14. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm curious for when Mike goes over there, what's going to happen. Chapter 14 is a little bit long, but it might be just enough to take us into close to the 2 hour mark because we ain't going to be reading all day long. Yeah. When I read for about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, I think that is more than just enough for me. That is more than enough. What y'all think? Yeah. All right, let us continue. Julie, Mike called out as he entered the house. Julie craned her neck, loosened her grip slightly on the rag. In here, Mike. I think something happened though. It doesn't seem to be leaking anymore. I just shut off the water with the valve out front. It should be fine now. Mike poked his head into the kitchen, and one word came immediately to mind: breast. Julie, soaked to the point that he could clearly see the outlines of her breasts, looked as though she had been targeted during spring break by rowdy boys, the kind who consider drinking gallons of beer and wet t-shirt contests the high point of their existence. You have no idea how much I appreciate you coming over here, Mike, Julie said. She shook the excess water from her hands and unwrapped the faucet. Mike barely heard her. Don't stare at her breasts, he told himself. Whatever you do, don't stare at her breasts. A gentleman wouldn't stare. A friend wouldn't stare. Squatting, he opened his toolbox. Singer sat beside him and sniffed the box, as if looking for goodies. No problem, he mumbled. Julie began Julie began to wring out the rags one at a time. I mean it. I hope I didn't drag you away from anything important. Don't worry about it, Mike said. Do not worry about it. Julie pulled her t-shirt away from her skin and looked at him. Are you okay? She asked. Mike began fishing around for the basin wrench, a long, thin plumbing tool used to reach bolts in difficult places. I'm fine. Why? You're kind of acting like you're upset. I'm not upset. You won't even look at me. I'm not staring. That's what I just said. Oh, Mike? Here it is, he said suddenly, thanking God for the opportunity to change the subject. I was hoping I put that in there. Julie kept staring at him, puzzled. I think I'm going to go change, she said finally. I think that's probably a great idea, Mike muttered. What me miss? Why you miss? You miss out. The job at hand gave Mike something to focus on, and he took to it immediately, if only to clear Julie's image from his mind. He spread around some towels. he had grabbed from the linen closet and soaked up some of the thin film spread across the floor, then emptied the cupboard before below the sink, stacking the bottles of various cleansers on either side of the doors. By the time Julie got back, he was already working to replace the faucet. The faucet, only his torso and lower body were readily visible. Both his legs were sticking out. Despite the towels, there were wet circles on either knee where he had had to kneel. Singer was lying beside him, his head pushed into the darkened space beneath. Would you stop panting? Mike complained. Singer ignored the comment, and Mike exhaled, making a point to breathe through his mouth. I'm serious. Your breath stinks. Singer's tail vibrated up and down. And give me some room, will ya? You are in the way, Singer. Julie saw him push, or rather tried to push Singer without much effect. Chilled, she had slipped into a pair of jeans and a light sweatshirt. Her hair was still wet, though she had brushed it back, away from her face. How's it going under there? She asked, at the sound of her voice, Mike raised his head, bumping it on the sink trap. Singer's breath was hot on his cheeks, the odor making his eyes water. Good, I'm just about to get it done. Already? It's not that bad, and it's not that hard either. Just have to remove a couple of nuts, and the faucet pops off. I didn't know that kind of faucet you wanted. I didn't know what kind of faucet you wanted, so I just grabbed one that looks like your old one. I hope that's okay. She glanced at it. That's fine. Because I could be because I could go get a different one, it's no big deal. No, 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 you don't need to do that. As long as it works, it's perfect. She saw his arms start to crank the wrench again, and to her surprise, she caught herself eyeing the wiry muscles of his forearms as he worked. A moment later, she heard a plink as something dropped beneath the cabinet. Got it, he said. He slid out from under the sink and, seeing that she had changed, felt himself relax. It was easier this way, less threatening, less breasty. He stood and lifted the old faucet free, then handed it to her. You really destroyed that thing, he said, pointing to the gaping hole at the top. What do you use to turn it on? A hammer? No, dynamite. You might want to use a little less next time. She smiled. Can you tell what went wrong with it? Just old, I guess. It's probably original with the house. It's the one thing I haven't had to replace around here, but I probably should have looked at it the last time I fixed your disposal. So you are saying it was your mistake? If you say so, he said. I mean, if it makes you feel better and all. But give me another minute here and I'll have everything up and running again. Okay? Sure. He put the new faucet in place, crawled back underneath, and hooked it all up. Then, excusing himself from the kitchen, he vanished out the door for a moment. Singer trailed close behind. After turning the water valve back on, he came back in and tried the faucet, making sure it wasn't leaking. Looks like you're good to go. I I still think you made that look so easy, she said. Before you got here, I was wondering which plumber to call if you couldn't get it done. Mike feigned offense. I can't believe that after all this time, you would even think of such a thing. Julie laughed as he squatted to start putting the cleansers back. Oh, no, you don't. You don't have to. Let me get that, she said, kneeling next to him. I can do something. As they were putting things away, Julie more than once felt his arm brush against hers and wondered why she even noticed it at all. Hey! A minute later, she, a minute later, the cupboard was closed and the towels were bundled up, still dripping. She left the kitchen for a moment to throw them in the laundry room while Mike put his tools away. When she came back, she headed straight for the refrigerator. I don't know about you, but I need a beer after all the excitement this evening. Do you want one? I'd love one. Julie grabbed two bottles of Coors Light and handed one to Mike. After twisting off the cap, she clinked her bottle against his. Thanks for coming over. I know I said it already, but I had to say it again. Hey, Mike responded. That's what friends are for, right? Come on, Julie said, waving the bottle. Let's sit on the porch. Let's sit on the porch with these. It's too nice to stay inside. She started towards the door, then suddenly stopped. Wait, wait. Did you say you have already eaten dinner? When I called you earlier, I mean. Why? Because I'm starved. In all the commotion, I didn't get a chance to eat. You up for sharing a pizza? Mike smiled. That sounds great. Julie started towards the phone, and as she moved away, Mike wondered if the evening would somehow end up breaking her or his heart. Well, somebody's heart might get broken. I'm not sure whose, but somebody's heart might get broken. I have a funny feeling it might be Mike's heart that gets broken, but we will see. Ham and pineapple, is that okay? She called out. Mike swallowed. Whatever you want is fine with me. They sat in rockets on the porch, the heat of their skin escaping into the cool evening. Cicadas humming and mosquitoes circling just outside the screen. The sun had finally dipped from sight, the last rays of light reflected from the horizon shining between the trees. Julie's home, which sat on half an acre, was bordered on the back and sides by vacant wooded lots. And when she wanted to be alone, this was the place she went. It was also the reason she and Jim had bought the home in the first place. Both of them had always dreamed of owning an older home with graceful wraparound porches. Though the house desperately needed work, they had put in their offer the same day they had walked through it. Singer was dozing on the porch near the steps, one eye popping open every now and then, as if to make sure he wasn't missing anything. In the waning light, Julie's features took on a pale glow. This reminds me of the first time we met, Mike said, smiling. Do you remember that? When Mabel invited all of us over to her place so we'd have the chance to meet you. How could I forget? It was one of the most terrifying moments of my entire life. But we are such nice people. I didn't know that. Back then, you were all strangers to me. I had no idea what to expect. Even with Jim, especially with Jim, it took me a long time to realize why he did what he did for me. I mean, I'd never known anyone like him, and I had a hard time believing that there were people out there who were just good. I don't think I said a single word to him that night. You didn't? The next day, Jim mentioned that to me. He did? Not in a bad way. And anyway, he told us beforehand not to expect you to say much. Said you were kind of timid. He did not. Oh, Lord. God, so leave your heart at home. Leave my heart at home. My heart. And then do what? He called you mousy. Mousy? She laughed. I've been called a lot of things, but mousy isn't one of them. Well, I think he said that just so we'd give you a chance, not that he really needed an excuse. The fact that both he and Mabel liked you was enough for us. Julie paused for a long moment, looking almost forlorn. It's still hard for me to believe that I'm here sometimes, she said. Why? Just the way things worked out. I mean, I've never even heard of Swansboro until Jim mentioned it, and here I am, 12 years later, still hanging around. Mike looked at her over his bottle. You sound like you want to leave. Julie tucked one leg beneath her. No, not at all. I like it here. I mean, there was a while there after Jim died that I thought I should start over someplace new, but I just never got around to it. And besides, where should I go? It's not like I want to live near my mom again. Have you talked to her lately? Not for a few months. She called me on Christmas and said she wanted to come up and visit, but I haven't heard from her since. I think she said that so I'd offer to send her money for the flight or something, but I wasn't about to do that. It would just open old wounds. I know that's gotta be hard. It is sometimes, or it's used to be anyway, but I don't really allow myself to think about it much anymore. When I when I first started going out with Jim, I wanted to make contact with her. It if only to let her know that everything had worked out for me. I guess I wanted her approval. It's strange that I cared about that, but as disappointing as she was as my mother, it was still important. But not anymore. Not so much. She didn't show up for the wedding. She didn't show up for the funeral. After all, I just sort of gave up. I mean, I'm not rude when she calls, but there's much, much, much more feelings than there. What can she say now? Then nobody's heart will be broken. If everybody leave their heart at home, nobody's heart will be broken. That's great. That's a nice way to put it. But how can everybody leave their heart at home? Hmm. I don't think everybody can do that. I can't wait. I don't know about you all on this story, guys, but I want Julie and Mike to get together. What do y'all think? I wish Julie and Mike could get together. But anyway, I don't know if that is going to happen. But they are spending the evening together. They're eating pizza and drinking beer. So who knows? Not so much. She didn't show up for the wedding. She didn't show up for the funeral. After that, I just sort of gave up. I mean, I'm not rude when she calls, but there's not much feeling there. I may as well be talking to a stranger. As she spoke, Mike stared towards the darkening shadows near the trees. In the distance, small bats appeared and disappeared in blinks, as if they had never been there at all. Henry drives me nuts half the time, and my parents are just as wacky as he is. But it's nice to know they are around for support. I don't know what I'd do without them. I don't know if I could make it on my own like you have. She looked at him. You'd make it. Besides, I'm not totally alone. I've got Singer here, and I've got my friends. That's enough for now. Mike wanted to ask where Richard fit into the equation, but decided not to. He didn't want to ruin the mood, nor did he want to ruin the light. Easy feeling he had Easy feeling he had now that his beer was almost finished. Can I ask you a question? Julie said. Sure. Whatever happened with Sarah? I thought you two had something special going, and then all of a sudden, you weren't seeing each other anymore. Mike adjusted himself in the chair. Oh, you know. No, not really. You have really told me why it ended. You have never told me why it ended. There wasn't much to tell. That's what you always say. But what's the real story? Mike was quiet for a long moment before shaking his head. You don't want to know. What did she say? Did she cheat on you? When Mike didn't answer, Julie suddenly knew her guess was correct. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Or I was, anyway. It was some guy from work. His car was at our house when I went by one morning. What did you do? You mean, did I get angry? Of course. But to be honest, it wasn't entirely her fault. I hadn't exactly been the most attentive boyfriend at the end. I guess she felt neglected. He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I don't know. I guess part of me knew it wasn't going to last, so maybe I stopped trying. And then something was bound to happen. Neither said anything for a moment, and noticing he was almost empty, Julie pointed to his bottle. You need another one? Probably, he said. You got it. She rose, and Mike scooted the rocker back a little to make room for her. Watching as the door slammed shut behind her, he couldn't help but notice how good she looked in jeans. He shook his head, forcing the thought away. Now was not the time for that. If they were having wine and lobster, maybe, but pizza and beer? No, this was just a casual night. The ways things used to be before he had done something as crazy as allowing himself to fall in love with her. He still wasn't sure exactly when it had happened. After Jim had been gone for a while, he knew that, but he couldn't pin it down any more than that. It wasn't as if a light had suddenly blinked on. It was more like a sunrise, where the sun grows lighter and lighter, almost imperceptible, before you realized it was morning. When Julie came back out, she handed him the bottle and took her seat again. Jim used to say that too. Jim used to say that too, you know. What? Probably when I asked him if he wanted another beer. Did he get that for you? Probably. She laughed. Did you think Do you still think about him? Mike nodded. All the time. I do too. I'm sure you do. He was such a good guy, such a great guy. You couldn't have done any better. And he used to tell me that he couldn't have done any better either. She leaned back in her seat, thinking how much she liked what he said. You're a good guy too, you know. Yeah, me and about a million others. I'm not like Jim was. Sure, you are. You are from the same small town. You are the same friends. You like to do the same things. For the most part, you two seemed more like brothers than you and Henry. Except, of course, for the fact that Jim could never have fixed that faucet. He couldn't fix anything. Well, Henry couldn't have fixed it either. Really? No. Henry could have fi- Henry could have fixed it, but he wouldn't have. He hates getting his hands dirty. That's funny, considering you two own a garage. Tell me about it. But I don't mind. To be honest, I like what I do a whole lot more than his part of the job. I'm not a big fan of paperwork. So I guess being a loan officer is out, huh? Like Jim was. No way. Even if I could somehow con my way into getting the job, I wouldn't last more than a week. I'd approve everybody who walked in the door. I'm not very good at saying no when someone really needs help. She reached over, touching his arm. Gee, really? He smiled suddenly at a loss for words. He smiled, suddenly at a loss for words. wishing with all his heart that the touch could last forever. Guys, he's wishing that that touch could last forever. Let me see what Josie said. Julie want to ride the horse for the longest, but Mike won't. I cannot with you. I can. I'm wondering. I think Mike is the one who wants to do that, but Julie is kind of holding off. Because remember, she's having that conflict because he's her husband who died, her dead husband's best friend. So she's kind of worried about whether or not she should go into a relationship with him. She likes him and he likes her. And I think I like them together. I think they should be together. But now Julie's between a rock and a hard place because how is she going to entertain Mike romantically when she's now attached to Richard? Ah, Lord. OMG. We are going to listen and hear what happens to the two of them. What happens between the two of them tomorrow. I'm not going to read any more today. Yep, I'm not going to read any more today. We have read for, we said an hour and a half, 90 minutes, but we have read now for almost 2 hours. And that in of itself is a good thing. We are not going to read all of it one day. We will come back tomorrow and read some. What I mean by my love foolishness? What kind of foolishness, my love? What kind of foolishness, my love, no, God? A foolishness because me say me want the two of them to be together. Yeah, I just feel say Julie and Mike would make a great couple. Them already know each other. Them already, love each other. That momentum is slowly building up between them. Yeah, I think they're gonna do well together. That's what I think. I think they would do great together. But we're gonna wait and see. We're gonna wait and see if they eventually get together or not when we come back tomorrow. All right, guys. All right, that's where that reading is going to end for right now. Tomorrow we will pick up where we left off and see if Julie and Mike drink some more beer on the porch, eat some more pizza, and if Richard shows up and see them there and gets jealous or whatever else happens. Now you see how it feel when a person want an next person. Me say, Joe, you see how it is. I watch the person with somebody else. All right. Liz said Julie is going to realize and leave Richard. You think so? Julie is going to realize and leave Richard. I wonder too. Because Richard seemed quite mysterious. Richard seems quite mysterious. So I think say Julie maybe I say, Richard too mysterious. And so Julie already have a sour taste in her mouth where Richard is concerned. So and we still don't know what kind of consulting work Richard I do. I don't even know if I drugs him a push or whatever. What kind of consulting work him doing that is shrouded in such secret? We don't know. So we're gonna wait and see what happened between them, between Julie and Mike. Because I don't know about y'all, but I am waiting for the two of them to hit it off. Because the two of them have that built up energy. The two of them have that built up energy waiting for each other. Oh my God, Katya, yeah. He's a little bit shady. That is right. He's a little bit shady for real. Something is up with Richard. I'm not sure what it is, but something is up with him. I'm not sure what. So we're going to continue reading and we will find out what it is that is up with Richard. All right? And that is where the reading is going to end today. That's where it's at for today, guys. When we come back later, we are going to talk about me and this chair. When we come back later, we are going to talk about this is tonight. You waiting for a volcano to erupt? Oh, me? No, sir, me don't know. Me don't know of that. Me don't know of that volcano to erupt. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Julie and Mike to fall in love. That's what I'm waiting for. And for her to kick Richard to the curb. Because I don't know what Richard is up to. Yeah, but that's going to be it for now. When we come back later, we are going to chat a little. I'm going to if you behave myself, Joseph, me not behave no self. It's my birthday. I'ma do what I like, and I'ma say what I like. I'ma be what I like. Oh my gosh! Me go behave myself. Me go see me get some food. Me see me get some food 'cause I'm hungry. And then we are come back. We are go talk about that incident, and we are going to play one video funeral and we are going to chat a little bit. All right, so that's where we're going to end for right now, guys. When we come back later, we will talk again. So have yourselves a great evening, everybody. Whatever, card. Have yourselves a great evening, everybody, and I will see you all in a little bit. Until next time. This is Trev from Trevessence, where your journey matters. Have yourselves a great evening, everybody. See you all later. Let me go find me some.